Find the amplitude and the period, then graph the function. Now remember, this number in front is the amplitude. So the amplitude is 3. To find the period of the function, we use this number in front of the x, which is 2 in this case. And the period of the function is equal to 2 pi divided by that number in front of the x, which is 2. So in this case, the period is pi. Now what that means is that one cycle of the function will occur between 0 and pi. Okay, now this is a cosine function. When an input is 0, an output's going to be 1. But in this case, we're stretched by 3. So really, we're going to be up here to 3. And there are two different ways you can approach the function. What you can do is you can first graph the function without the stretch and then stretch it out after, or you can just go with the stretch initially. And I like to go with the stretch initially just because a stretch isn't really that complicated. You're just changing the amplitude. So instead of having an output of 1, I'll have an output of 3. Okay, now one period of the function occurs between 0 and pi. So that means at pi, my output's also going to be 3. With a cosine function, it starts with a maximum of 3. And in this case, it's going to have a minimum value of -3. So that means halfway in between these two maximum values, I'm going to have a minimum value of -3 down here. And halfway in between the maximum and minimum is going to be a 0. And halfway between the minimum and the maximum is going to be a 0. So by understanding the general shape of a cosine function, I was able to create all of the important points. I know that it starts with a maximum, and then it ends with a maximum. Halfway in between is the minimum, and then halfway in between each of those is a 0. So now, all I need to do is extend the pattern a little further, and then I can graph my cosine function. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to continue this pattern, and another period of the function occurs between pi and 2 pi, and then you can extend the pattern in the negative direction as well. There's another period of the function there between -pi and 0, and then I'll do one more pattern. Now there are a bunch of points on here, so then what does the graph look like? It's going to curve. So for example, when you're graphing a cosine or a sine function, it's important that you try to make curves. They're almost like little mini parabolas. You don't want to make them look like V's. Okay, so there is my graph of 3 cosine of 2x. And notice how easy this trig graph paper made it. Just as far as the x-axis being marked with the radian measures of pi over 2 pi, 3 pi over 2 pi, and so forth, it really makes this simple. I'd highly recommend that you print out some of this graph paper, and there's a link to it on the course resources page. Okay, so the amplitude is 3, the period of the function is pi, and there's our graph.